Salut, Kusute. Hello, Alina. Thanks for being here with me to talk about lace.
Hello, nice to be here.
Let's say we promised we are going to save lace through this new project, Tracks for Crafts. And it was a confusion. Why do we include lace in the same family with embroidery? And I tried to explain, because we make it with a needle. It's needlework. And this umbrella of needlework, we have needle lace and embroidery. And there is easy for me to separate them because embroidery is needlework on the fabric, but needle lace, it's taking this leap of faith, giving up, saying goodbye to the fabric at some point, eventually, and being found on the edges and between edges, connecting two edges, right? So it seems so simple, but it's always complicated when you think that is such a famous craft, and it sounds very ambitious to save the lace. Why is lace in danger? Lace is in danger because it was famous, it was valuable, and at some point it was a luxury product, and further in history there were people trying to make it an affordable luxury, available for all. So they started to invent the first lace making machines when? 200 years ago?
Yes, somewhere around 1820 or something.
200 years ago. So it happens that trying to make a craft more profitable, more faster, easier.
To meet the demands.
Yes, to meet the demands, you end up killing it. So it's suicidal for the craft to set this goal to become more affordable. So when we think about lace today, if you ask most people randomly, they would say, lace is something old. So you might think that it's coming out of fashion. But in the same time, you think of something cheap. Because you think about all this underwear, bra and panties with lots of additional lace-like creations. It's used, they're using cheap materials.
Common
materials, plastic, polyester, acrylic. So it's very far from what lace was.
And because the
place.
price is so low, they actually afford to put it everywhere.
Too much.
That's how you kill it, actually.
It's too much of it. It's coming in wrong doses.
Even high fashion designers, when they are using very rarely handmade lace, they are using industrial lace.
Yeah. So this is something not new for the history of mankind in terms of art, invention, and everything. We did it before to create something beautiful, useful. And then, like it happened in architecture with a Gothic style, right? It was needed. A new system, a new constructive system was needed to create taller spaces, to impose respect and meditation and fear of God and respect for God and everything. So people spent quite a lot of time and effort to create a new constructive system to support the weight of the pillars and to transmit all the forces of the roof eventually into the ground. So they come up with a new structure. It's the Gothic style. The early examples can be traced to 11th century, 12th century, and happy with this product, they go further on into giving attention to aesthetics, and they polish this style to bring it to a classic, to a perfect, let's say, perfect shape, perfect proportions, perfect everything. But the next generations forget about the initial problem that Gothic style came to solve, and they want to change, they want to innovate. Everybody wants to put their fingerprint on something, and they, not knowing what else they could do in terms of construction system, they start to enrich it with decoration, suffocating the supple style that was created previously. So after all, they enrich it so much with decoration that eventually they get bored with the result after a while, and they say, we need a new style. Let's abandon this because it's not good. Look at it. It's so crowded. So this is another way you can kill a creation, because you forget why you did it in the first
Yes.
place. Of course, it's neo-Gothic at some point, so people return to old ideas like we're trying to do now, and through neo-Gothic they start to bring back some of the atmosphere of the Gothic, make it romantic, make it impressive for the eye, but it's not the same. It's not a constructive solution. What else? People invented cars in their desire to move faster from A to B, and then it was faster, and it is faster as long as we don't want all of us to use this method, because now we are stuck in traffic, car
Yes,
after
because
car.
everyone
Became
available for everyone.
luxury.
Yeah.
And everybody is stuck in traffic while we see people walking faster than we move, right? So we have to think about public transport and so on. In order to keep an invention still going, we have to return to the basics and wonder, why did we start this in the first place? And I think we should do the same about lace, because most people, when they think of lace, they think of this fragile white product,
Which was
pretty
not
much
in the beginning.
pretty much related with countries from Western Europe. You think of Belgian lace, you think of Irish lace. Many people think of Italian lace, right? But that's not the only lace, it's not the first lace, actually.
Those are only merely evolutions of the antique lace.
Yeah, so practically what we know as lace, it's what was documented about lace, because
Yes.
lace existed way before, not being enough documented and spoken for, like praised, and so probably lace was not really perceived as valuable, because maybe it was too functional and too common to speak about it. What do you think?
Yes, they did. Yes, because it, as it's proved, it remained in those culture for longer, precisely for that, because everybody was using it as a normal way of life. So it's not something special that you need or you feel the need to point out or to. It was there.
You better give it a new name, right?
Yes.
Because it is so much attached to the fabric and so much useful in terms of creating a piece of cloth from
It
zero.
was part of the clothes. It remained part of the clothes. It never left the shirt or the skirt. It's still there.
So mother of lace is fabric.
Yes.
Exactly like for embroidery. Let's say lace would be a sister of embroidery.
I don't believe we would have lace without the fabric.
You never know. You never know what people could have done. But let's see. Where do you think lace was invented, or what technique was the basic for the idea of lace?
Yeah, what we know from what was documented is that lace is part of the history of this Mediterranean basin. So somewhere here in this part of intersection between Europe and Africa and Asia is the point where the lace was actually, let's say, invented or used the first time.
Yeah, because if you think about the techniques, the basic techniques of creating a net, they're very similar with those used for creating a fishnet.
Yes, yes. The idea would come very...
Yeah, since
easily.
You are working on a fishnet for your husband,
Yes.
or for your father, at some point eventually you would think, it's a nice network, can I use it for my clothes? And probably this is why also the climate needs to be hot or warm.
Yes.
To allow your mind even to think about wearing something so fragile and see-through and everything. Because if you think about it, there are so many fishermen communities in North and Western Europe.
Yes, and not only.
Can you imagine the Vikings going for lace when it is so cold?
No, they will go for wool, for fur. They need warm clothes.
So even though they could have known the techniques, or the techniques, let's say, are not...
Was familiar.
They were familiar with the techniques, they were using them for a different purpose.
Yes.
Creating a fishnet, and that's it. Right? Because it's a bit strange to even imagine that you could wear something like that when you need to cover up. So let's come home.
Yeah, this is as we had a painting as a first image. Now we have something concrete because you have to somehow prove how old the lace is. And this is from the touch of my laptop, how far I could get behind. And this is 10th to 15th century textile.
Smells like Ashmolean.
Ashmolean Oxford, yes, collection, their Oriental collection. And they were gathered from Egypt. But it was mentioned there that probably the source of the textile was somewhere in the Anatolian.
Anatolian.
So that will indicate a possible route of how this textile were traveling.
So indicates Silk Road. Yeah. Smells like Silk Road.
Smells like Silk Road, and if we will go further on to a map when we'll see what happened in the Mediterranean basin at that time.
For the moment, I'm quite confused.
Yeah.
Because I can see, obviously, I can see the squares, intersection of two squares giving an octagon. This is something that for me indicates exactly early Muslim. Early Muslim, definitely, because it's their type of geometry.
It is.
As they were forbidden to depict animals and humans, right? So they return to geometry as their source of inspiration for everything. And it's good because the fabric is also geometric, and I can understand that I have a network that is strictly connected with the structure of fabric. So in the first place, I understand that the structure of fabric itself will somehow become a guideline for early creations of needle lace.
I was happy to find these three fragments because they are also indicating some path of evolution. They were all met later on in Europe, in Western Europe. Yeah. So the techniques were there before the lace was discovered by Europe. So it was in use at that time. And even before, maybe, we know that lace and embroidery was mentioned even in the Bible, so it's even for them it wasn't something new. But this was what we have to
I think also Herodotus mentions needlework. Yes. Not with the term of embroidery, but there is needlework. No. The same as in Bible, in Exodus, it's mentioned that there is a guy making the cutting patterns, another one making adornments, so probably embroidery because it's not used the term. It's adornment with a needle. And another person is a seamstress. So probably this is the person creating the edges, reinforcing the edges and connecting edges to create a complete garment, right?
So even if we don't have pictures of the actual objects, we have them mentioned, that's for sure. And here we have even documented with photographs of textiles that it was in use in that part of the Eastern Mediterranean.
And we have other proofs. We have marble statues from the ancient Greek where you can see there is a specific decoration between the hems holding tunic in...
Yes, with some, let's say, limitation that perhaps the artist who made the statue or painted those paintings were actually referencing to what he had around him at the time, because probably he didn't know what was 100 years before him. But here we have the piece, actually the piece. And
so this is the proof that we still rely on geometry to create lace. Yes. Lace, it's very not rigid, but it is structured and it is in strict relation with the structure of the fabric, because as we can see here in the right part, they made another experiment, something more like a free form. This is the intersection of two squares, and we can see it was not as resistant as the previous one.
Perhaps, I'm not sure, but we definitely see the squares that were actually the main frame of the lace, and then the filling, which is also based on geometric patterns. And as you want to point out, the geometric pattern resisted more than the one that had perhaps a rounded edge or something less stable.
We don't know what happened with this piece, but for sure we can imagine that there is a safer proportion between the empty spaces and those worked with a needle, reinforced with this, because it counts as a reinforcement.
Yes.
All this needle work used for the ancient lace techniques, it's also coming as a reinforcement.
That's why we see them on squares, on diagonals, and or
Because
reinforcing those squares.
It's
and
fixing
diagonals.
the structure of the fabric, right?
Like here, because the square that we've seen before looks very much like the embroidery on the right side here. So either the one that embroidered also made the lace, or they used it as a source of inspiration. We also have pull thread here on the left side, very much similar with what is still in use today in Western Europe and not only. And we have, say, a replica of a fillet in the middle, the S in the middle, what is used there. It's a first version of fillet, of what we call today fillet, without pulling the thread, just reinforcing the structure of the fabric, making small squares.
It's important to mention that we are going to prepare video tutorials for how to do all these things, because I imagine they are very simple.
They are, and since we are having an embroidery here, let's not forget that what we use for the needle laces techniques are
very similar.
They are actually the embroidery techniques, just used on different in a different way
for different effects. Okay, I can notice here visual symbols, patterns. Let's say that remind me also of the Berber carpets, tribal Berber rugs. So I wonder if these kind of textiles have something to do being spread into Western Europe with
through North Africa, maybe
through North of Africa, and then conquering of Spain.
Southern Spain, yes, definitely, because we have images that show Spanish shirts, traditional shirts that are using the same techniques.
Yeah, but. What else we know? We know for sure that during the Crusades there were many people traveling from Western Europe to East and going farther. I mean, they didn't stay just to Jerusalem. No. They moved around the larger areas, and they got in contact also with the East Roman Empire that was still functioning as an empire. And probably being connected with and having in use all these techniques and luxury goods like silk, linen, cotton, and everything, metallic threads. So a map is needed.
A map is needed because this map reflects the same period, so until the 15th century. Between 10th century and 15th century.
So it has the age of the textiles we previously saw.
And we have with green we have the Arab tribes conquering north of Africa and the south of Spain, and then to the north we have the East Roman Empire.
With purple?
Yes, with purple. And we also have marked the fights that, because they were fighting for supremacy even in this area, because the sea was very important for not only for economic, also for logistics. They need to keep their armies with all necessary and the sea was the safest and the fastest route to get from east to west.
Yes.
Yeah, from north to south.
Let's think about it. What kind of products would Europe have for export at the time, except for furs and amber, which traveled from the Scandinavian countries and Baltic countries to Constantinople on Volga River and being brought by the Rus, the rowing people, right? It's not much. It's not much. It's slaves that the Vikings captured in attacking the northern countries, Ireland,
Oh yes,
UK.
and let's not forget that we have all the migratory population that were traveling across Europe before that.
But while these dark ages were happening in the north and west of Europe, the Mediterranean area was flourishing, and they were importing lots of luxury goods, spices, coffees, everything from the Silk Road, which was coming to Constantinople after a travel on the Black Sea, after a longer travel coming from Japan, China, territories of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan,
the Far East,
meeting India, and then going through the desert, through the Arab countries, and finally arriving in Constantinople, where you'd have a huge commercial hub. Yes. And it's still one of the biggest cities, Istanbul, today. It's the place where everything
the one who controls those straits actually controlled
the Black Sea and the trade. Because the America was not discovered yet, and everybody was, everybody was moving around these places. In order
this is a later period when the Genovese and the Venetian republics were actually the masters of the sea. And we see their trade routes here and how they traveled from the east to the west, from north to south. The Gibraltar and the other straits with the Black Sea, Dardanelles and Mara were very important. They were controlled. And
so everything that mattered in that time. Crimea connected what was coming through Crimea. Everything I said, fur, slaves and amber was coming from the north to Crimea and to be moved, to be shipped on the sea, because the transport on the sea was cheaper. You could transport higher quantities. And this is why France and Spain seems to be avoided, because they...
And with this, let's say, trade routes, also, we had the cultural exports. At the same time, the Constantinople fall to Ottomans, and again,
29th of May, 1453.
Okay, and that's how an important part of Greek population fled the region, moving either to Italy, what we know today is Italy, or to north.
In Bulgaria, in Romania, and Serbia, probably.
Yes, and with them also traveled all their heritage, cultural and
heritage, material. Which became
because they had to sustain themselves, and it's documented that many of them were actually making laces to sustain their families. Or other crafts, but lace was mentioned.
Lace was mentioned, so probably with a Greek name,
and that's
like
how, because Bibila for us on the northern
like the
route,
Greek name.
But if we think of the Italian peninsula, we know that they call it Punto Greco.
Punto Greco.
For some, we even have Punto Zante from the Isles of Zakynthos. So there are many other namings that suggest that Greece was actually the route where the laces started to...
So even if, let's assume, even if maybe the Greeks did not invent it, maybe lace was invented by Phoenicians or so. This is the way Italians started to be aware and fascinated about lace, because they saw it brought into Venice by the Greek families coming to find refuge after the fall of Constantinople, right?
Definitely.
So this is why it's called Punto Greco, because they saw it in Greek families, right?
And they probably, or more surely, learned from
Greek families.
Yes, because later on they evolved in different techniques.
Yeah.
The more they learn, the more they see the potential and develop different techniques. But the ancient lace, for them, it's Punto Greco.
Okay, Italians are very good at doing this. They will take a product, a soap, a perfume, a lace, right? That is created somewhere in the Middle East. in the Egypt, cosmetics, right? They take it to Italy, they rebrand it, and then they say it's Italian,
They make
right?
it a product, yes.
Make it a product because they know how to talk about it and they know how to sell it. Because I bet anything you like that all these ancient lace techniques survive in this area,
Oh, yes.
not being precious, not being considered precious.
It was considered precious, but not so much seen as a product, because every
As a
woman
special
there,
craft.
yes, every woman there in every family, they actually know, just like in Romania, they know how to make it. They taught each other.
So
from
we are
mother to
blinded
daughter.
by this new
Yes.
communication in which
Yes.
lace is a new product, and it's becoming more and more complicated because it's a lot of time and effort is dedicated to new patterns. Probably after Punto Greco, probably it didn't stay as Punto Greco.
Punto in aria.
Punto in aria.
Which is actually the technique. So they started naming it Punto Greco, but then it was named in aria because that's what you get. Actually, you are working something in the air. Yeah.
So you say goodbye to the fabric and you become a new craft. I mean,
Actually,
officially, it's a...
Yeah. Actually, yes, because the old Greek techniques was still linked with the fabric in some way or another.
The way we have it also.
Yes.
Okay.
While the Italians, why did they want it to take it out of the fabric? Precisely for that.
To bring it into the attention,
Yes,
and to create new items.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And not... that's why I put men portraits here, because those are heads of big important families in the Western Europe. And it was the time that the menswear were actually giving up the warriors, let's say, show of their costume, and started to adopt more, let's say, more smooth fashion. And the lace was so precious, they actually even wear it over their
So it
armor.
was like a jewelry. it was like a jewelry.
Yes.
And
not everybody had it. So because it was at that point was very expensive. So there were not so many centers where they could make it. So in the beginning,
so
it was
the knowledge was not spread. It was kept by whom? I bet by the monasteries.
It was
the big business was made by the monasteries.
Yes, but it was because of social circumstances. Because there came orphans,
vulnerable, vulnerable
they
people.
were brought to the monastery. Even parents paid for their girls to go to the monastery because it was a better life. And it was quiet, and they could learn something to work with in a clean environment. They didn't have to go to farming or something that was far more difficult to. So yes, that's why somehow it's linked to the monasteries, and the demand was so high that they actually had to find ways to find more workers, and that's how the trade associations were actually, the guilds were.
So they kept the knowledge secret somehow. Compared with the eastern part, where the knowledge was rather popular.
Yes, it was quite democratic.
So it was democratic, but also kept at the level of basics.
It was, you had as much as you can afford to have.
Yeah.
Just as in Romania. Yeah. You have money, you have skills.
If you have extra time, you can do a little bit more for your own clothes. Yeah. Right. But this guy never made any lace for himself. This was bought. This is
even if men were making lace, actually, it was documented that both men and women were workers, lace workers, or
lace makers.
Crafts. Yeah. In this portrait, we see that this collar has still the fabric visible, because this fashion of collar started with the fabric being
gathered around the neck,
yes,
and then on the edges,
and then in time, as lace spread it more, they using it as edging, because in Renaissance fashion, late Renaissance, we can still see a bit of lace at the collars, at
So
on the
it was the
margin.
punto greco, or
It
already?
was at the start. Yes, I think it was actually with the needle,
Yes.
made it on the edge.
So it was still punto
It was
greco,
still-
going towards punto in aria.
Yes.
On the edges,
Yes.
right?
And
So
at
it's
that
still the
point-
Italian techniques. So Italy was exporting lace.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And at this point, when this fashion started and the craft spread it enough, and they saw the potential of making money, this fashion spread it also. So they put the laces on the edge, and it ended up at its pinnacle of having the whole collar only in lace, so you wouldn't have
Not this guy.
not this guy.
This
Later
one
on
seems
we'll
more
see.
precious. If you think about it, it is quite a contrast to see this textile product, which is delicate. And in this moment, it is quite delicate, but also it has strength. It's somehow self-supporting.
It projected power.
Power.
But it's very interesting because until now, even I haven't looked at it like this. I mean, this somehow opened my mind to realize that at that time, having lace were showing that you have power because you had the money.
To afford
You
this.
have the money to afford this.
So
it was
maybe-
so expensive.
Maybe the lace was more expensive than the armor, which was already quite
I wouldn't
expensive.
know, but for example, in Romanian tradition, I know I've seen somewhere mentioned that for a lace like this, you will give two cattles and
Two oxes
oxes and a piece of land or a quite sizable piece of land just to get lace. So I imagine it was.
So obviously they wanted to have a new image, not exactly like in the Middle Age.
But it was the symbol of power at that time.
Yes,
for them.
but the power became something not only brute force, but also connections, relations, ability to, to have family with good position, well connected, let's say. So for me, this is a shift into what was power previously. Power was more like brute force, and having an army of knights from your land.
Even the armor were expensive.
This armor is not as much based on function as before.
No.
It was a reminder of the idea that you can afford, because the armor is also very expensive to create such thing, and there were only a few centers of armor in Spain, in Germany maybe, but I guess.
Those were two powerful families, one from what we know today as Italy, and one from the Netherlands.
I was about to ask you, their lace is so different.
Yes, because
this one is very flamboyant, right?
Yes,
and this one is flat, but is
it's just
a sign of modesty, or
if we may call it modesty, it's maybe the difference between Catholics and Protestants.
You think? Okay.
Yes, because the Netherlands at that time was already Protestant. So it's.
So it was also expression of religion, beliefs, or values, let's say.
Yes, they were
personal values.
Yeah, we know that they didn't encourage the display of luxury. Yes, but what we may notice in this portrait, for example, is that we have the fabric.
Right.
We have open work.
Yeah.
Pull thread.
Here.
And yes, and then we have on the edges the lace, which I assume it was already made with bobbins.
So we have new
at
tools.
that time. We don't have anymore the antique lace. We have the bobbin lace.
But why was this invented? Why the bobbin lace?
Well, it's a funny history. Maybe it's a legend or maybe not, but it's linked with many laws that were given by the northern Italy dukes, because the lace became so expensive that actually people are becoming poor. They said, okay, no, stop. We give a law that will forbid the use of needle to make lace.
Oh,
but of course,
okay.
this wouldn't stop the desire to have lace, and that's how it is said that the bobbin lace was came into
So it
fashion.
is not
So they
faster.
invented not only using the needle, because okay, you don't allow us to use the needle, but we can still play with the threads.
Okay, because I was wondering if it's faster or if it's more efficient, or it's already an attempt to make it more efficient and make it faster.
I don't know as far as fast, but what I can say, it's not as robust as it's not as.
But you don't need it to be robust in this case. You
No,
just need to
no.
have it on your
Yes.
shoulders.
So it's not so resistant.
This guy needs to have it stronger because it has to stay in this shape
Yes.
also.
Yes.
This one is just flat.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what actually it does. It flattens everything, and you cannot play so much with the patterns. Yes, you actually repeat the same pattern.
Yeah, but since you are forbidden to use the needle, I can understand. It's okay. Let's see about these two ladies.
These two ladies are also from northern Italy, the Medici family.
Okay.
The one in the right is Catherine of Medici.
Caterina de Medici, okay.
Yes, who married at a very young age the King of France. And she survived him a lot. She was a widow wearing black. She actually introduces black as a, let's say, way of mourning, the color of mourning.
Showing off that you are in...
Yes, we see the edges. I assume she didn't need this much lace because she was a very powerful lady. She didn't need lace to show that she has power. Whilst on the other side we have another Medici who married a Duke of Mantua, a very powerful family. And she displays opulence. Her lace is,
okay.
is beyond what we can imagine that existed. And at the base she had a lace made of metallic thread.
Much more resistant,
much
probably
more
to support...
resistant and to give the shape, to keep the round shape of the collar. And we see there...
we see almost no fabric here, so...
No, it's...
maybe the painter didn't represent it, but probably around the body, around the neck, you might find...
You might find some support. I'm not really sure how it was made, if it was another thread that actually anchored the whole collar, but I don't know.
She looks tormented. Look at her earrings, if her earrings is moved, and probably you have to hold up your hair.
You have pearls at the base of the lace.
It's not...
as adornment, maybe, I don't know.
It's not something that you'd like to wear.
Ultimate opulence. I don't know how much power she thought she had, but she needed to display that she was part of an important family.
But this one...
appears to be
it's almost like Romanian, like for the edges of the shirt, right? It's antique lace.
Yes, for sure. And we know that Catherine of Medici took this fashion to France, and she was a promoter of lace.
So maybe she chose a more conservative form, something probably was fashionable in her youth.
Yes, I don't know. Maybe.
But obviously the fabric is here, and we see the lace is
a trim. You can see the trim there. I mean, it's not... and those two ladies are the daughters of the other lady here.
Her daughters?
Yes.
Okay.
They married also in very important families. One of them was also a queen of actually the empress, we can say, of the Western Roman Empire.
Oh, really? Okay.
So the one in the left.
She's wearing lace here also at the edges of the sleeves?
Yes, it's not the edge, actually. It was like a bracelet that were actually put at the end of your dressing.
Yeah, so we can see the fabric.
We can
here.
still see the fabric.
We can still see this shape of making the folds, the round folds.
It was very much in fashion, yeah.
I can imagine this lace would be staying self-supporting itself, because if you make it by, this is not bobbin lace. This is ancient.
We don't know what lace, but I might have been.
But this one is metallic thread.
This one has metallic thread, yes, was used. It was one of the reasons why many laws were given to restrict the use of metallic thread for lace, because it was very expensive, became very expensive, but it was indeed a very a fashionable thing to have. This is Emperor Rudolf II.
This one?
Yes, both portraits. The first one when he was younger, and the second one older one. And
the fashion is still
you
here.
You can see the fashion, actually. That's why I put them next to each other, to see that in a span of perhaps 30 or 40 years, it was still there, evolving from this, let's say, shape with more delicate adornment. You see that the fabric is actually the star here.
Right.
The lace is just a small detail, whilst here the fabric is not so important as much as the lace is. And it appears to be antique lace if we look at the borders and the edges.
Yeah. So definitely this is a representation of a painter who didn't prepare
Again, yes,
a pattern for us. So he's representing the idea of lace being around this guy's neck, and we try to figure it out. If it's not a photograph.
Even the painters were actually specialized
in depicting.
So someone who would want to be represented accurately would look for a painter who was very good
in depicting lace. Yes. Because basically this is the type of textile. Yes,
this is a sample of...
Sampler.
A sampler, yes, from not so later period, so they could be connected. And we see how actually the craftsmen were working. They had those, let's say, network made out of the fabric.
Okay.
And then on them were trying to build the patterns. So this is a, let's say, a trial fabric.
Or a book, let's say book, because they could not print. Yeah. I think there are very old books, you find it in antique bookstores in Italy, where you can see images of lace,
the books
drawings,
actually,
right?
Yes, the books appeared quite, just as soon as we had the
printer.
The books were there for inspiration. But I believe those belongs to craftspeople who are trying, who are inventing or looking for new patterns.
Okay, so
and this one
here we can see it better.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see something for the edges, because I understand this is
is
still very much connected with fabric. It's not
fabric.
Punto in aria.
No, but even if you work it on the fabric, you can use it as a punto in aria.
So you can use similar techniques even if you are framed by the fabric?
Yes, because again we have the squares, we have the diagonals, it's the same principle.
And here is more drastic.
Yes,
either you keep more fabric, either you create a network out of a thread directly, and you totally forget about the fabric, so the lace becomes separate objects.
This net becomes like a new fabric, let's say.
So this is like a fisherman net that you enrich with patterns and you make it finer, right?
Yes. And you use the same embroidery techniques. I mean, that's
needlework techniques.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's not really embroidery techniques, but needlework techniques.
Yeah, needlework techniques.
This I like very much.
This one, yes, it's
this seems to be in aria. Punto in aria.
It was mentioned, I'm not really sure if the museum actually identify correctly the technique. It's mentioned as punto in aria, but if you look it in detail and you know the technique, it looks
mixed.
it's mixed techniques, and there are parts where you can see it's bobbin lace.
Here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. Why not mix it if it is more efficient? But
the
definitely
mix was something common. I mean, you can see pieces of lace where you have combined techniques, so it's not out of ordinary.
I feel, Alena, I'm in this moment in life when I am mature, old. I mean, old in a good way, wise way.
Wiser.
And now I have the status to have lace for myself, and this is what the type of lace that I would like to have, because it's not repetitive, and I can put myself into this lace. And look, in each corner here I can depict 1 year of semne cusute. Here I would say this is the beginning of semne cusute, and here is that, and for sure everybody would know and would understand from far that it's not created by a machine.
It's a story told without words that will probably survive some centuries.
It will survive me. If I make it properly, it will live another 300-400 years if it's well preserved. And I'm joking, but this is the type of lace that I like precisely because it gives you some freedom of expression. It doesn't keep you very strict and very geometric, right? And I can create it and I can attach it from a shirt to another because I follow a structure, but I'm still independent from the fabric.
To create something.
I'm in aria, come on.
To
So I can move from one shirt to another. On a simple shirt, I can use this, and that would be enough for my old age with the status. Okay, this is for the sleeves, right?
Yes, and
here
we have mixed techniques actually.
It's more obvious.
The middle.
This is
those are made in punto in aria. And reticella, how they call it in Italy, and those parts are made with bobbins and the upper band.
What would they mix, these techniques?
Could be various reasons. Either they would want to make it faster and there were several workers working on different parts and then assemble it.
This could be
at the end. Other, you would have probably an older in aria made because they were precious, and you will have an older area, and once you have the bobbin technique, you want to enrich it and put something like an upcycle, let's say.
You mean it was so precious that you would preserve this old piece of lace and reintegrate
probably
it?
use the same way. But in a later time, when the bobbin was well installed, someone thought, okay, I can make more of it. Let's put some new edges.
Obviously, people were considering resources in a totally different manner.
Just like we did.
What is this?
And this is very emotional. This is a lace made out of human hair and horse hair. Yes.
I don't like. I don't. It feels like a strange idea to wear human hair.
It's very rare to see because they were not obviously it's easily destroyed, but they were given as token of love. They were made. You can imagine the finesse of the work. I mean, it's
yes. I mean, I would do anything to prove my love, but not this way.
Instead of just giving a little hair.
It seems so fragile and useless. I mean, yeah, maybe my idea is different.
But it was even this.
I mean, probably, look, I worked 2 years on this lace, so I was thinking of you for 2 years every day.
It was the utmost, let's say, proof of...
It said, let's move on to this one. I hope it's also horsehair, because I know it was used time to time being quite similar.
The museum said it was probably a mix. They didn't analyze it that much.
This one is happier.
This one is Venice lace actually. we can see that this in-area technique allows freedom of patterns.
Because we don't have the same...
And they also develop this technique because you don't have, you want to work entirely in area, you don't want to be linked with the fabric. But you use the fabric. You don't use it to attach it to, you attach it in a different way, let's say, because you use it as a support for the lace. So,
I can understand that.
Yeah, you put the threads, the main threads, on the shape you want it, and then you
It's a temporary reconnection with the fabric, just for the sake of making this cord.
Yes, and it's also practical because once you take it out, you release the lace and it remains in area, you can still use the base for another lace.
So you can work on modules, or if you...
Or you can make more pieces of...
Yeah, if you want to sell, you create, and somebody will come and order, I want this, and you can show the basis for everything.
Yes.
Nice. It looks quite a bit familiar with what we call Romanian point lace.
Oh yes, very much. So.
Because it's based on the same idea that you have a cord and a free form. You can go wild in terms of shapes and
it actually
flowers
developed until the Battenberg. The Battenberg lace is similar to this, except that that cord is actually made with. It's industrially made. It's made by machine, and you only concentrate on the fillings and the shape,
the petals, and So
Good.
even if you have, let's say, even if you have the same frame and the same support, you can still bring variations to it because of the filling. The filling can be different from one piece to another. And one question was, can I bring color into it? So the next slide already answered.
Obviously, it was quite common at some point, colored lace. Here we have a metallic thread base. We have those loops that are actually necessary when working with metal
you mean this one?
thread. Like those, yes, and in the round shape, you need to once in a while to make a loop, because otherwise the metallic thread has a tendency to spiral. So you want to break this by forcing the spiral in a certain shape, and the filling was with silk. Here we have entirely metallic thread.
Doesn't look like lace. I mean, when you pronounce the one lace, it's not something you. This is like a metallic structure.
Free shape form. Looks very much like an embroidery, but it's not. It's made with lace techniques.
Lace techniques. You can still see a lot of decorations for the edges in places like Bukhara and Jaipur. Everything was created with metallic thread. So if I see this image, immediately I connect it with West India and Uzbekistan today.
Probably inspired by,
because they produce metallic thread so much, so I imagine they also used it into various shapes.
And here we have an example, of let's say the fabric support and the lace constructed on this support. We can still see the drawing. We see the threads that are actually the structure of the lace and the fillings, the filling points.
You can see easily these fillings are done with a needle, and they look familiar for me.
There are only few techniques that are also used in embroidery, so it's nothing difficult. It's just the way you use it, actually, that is different.
The only difficult part seems to be to have enough patience to repeat little steps for many times, and with a beautiful rhythm, and in a beautiful alternating these few techniques, probably 3, 4 or 5, I don't know. Oh, this is a pretext of a sleeve, just to show off that
yes,
you have some
yes,
lace and you.
yes, it's actually the fabric was the support for the showing the lace. You wouldn't have the whole
Sleeve
sleeve underneath.
Why would you do that? In order to wash it separately from the shirt that would.
It could be, yeah.
So it would be related to maintenance and.
We know that there were special workers who were only doing this, taking care of master's laces.
Oh, okay. Seems strange. This is again very familiar to see ladies wearing lace-like stripes.
Yes, I was trying to find.
These are peasants or ladies, normal ladies.
Yes, those are. I was trying to find also example of lace used for like everybody, peasants or how, I don't know how to, but yes.
So maybe they were ladies who are creating lace, working lace for others. Obviously, they could use the same techniques for their own clothes.
Yes, and they could
for
teach,
their sisters,
and they could teach someone in the family, and so that's how they spread it. But they used it. This is probably 18th century already.
Oh,
and
this is,
those are shirts, look-alike shirts, like from the ones in the paintings.
We can see the huge gussets. So
yes.
Obviously they will take us to 18th century. I don't know how old is this blouse.
18th century. That's someone there.
Okay. We can see lace techniques. This
open
is quite
work,
wearable.
Open work there on the shoulders.
But also lace techniques used for connecting the parts, exactly like we still do in Romania today.
The sleeves and the collars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lace is also useful.
This could be one of our shirts very well. And
this as
one
well.
Too.
And similar shirts like this you can see also in Poland. You can see in Ukraine. So the fashion moves farther east in Lithuania, as much as you want. And also white on white embroidery has a good advantage for the time, because the colored embroidery would sometimes spoil the whole shirt, because the colors were not always fixed.
And not forget that most of it was made with silk. You don't want to destroy the precious. It was very difficult to maintain, to wash and to dry. So that's why white work was.
So we have several techniques used. Here around the collar. We have
seems to be like antique lace.
Antique lace. But also lace-like techniques, ancient techniques within the fabric itself, just to bring texture and preciousness.
This is familiar. Here we are closing the circle on the other side of the Mediterranean in Greece.
This is Greek, and we can see the borders.
Yes, this is the skirt, the lower part of a skirt.
Yeah, it's pretty much like.
Looks like ours.
Like Bulgarian textiles as well, because you can see the embroidery is bordering the edges. It's going up to
just as much as you want to be seen.
Yes, and to reinforce this connection here where it is most stressed. And you have bibila, the ancient techniques used for the borders and for connected to parts, exactly as you know it, and exactly probably the way it started in the first place to be used.
This is also Greek, but looks very much familiar with our the way we use this bibila or lace.
Yeah, just to reinforce the edges.
To reinforce the edges, we have the red color.
Also protection, meaning a symbol.
And not only that, we also have metallic thread lace.
Yeah, for another.
It's hard
so we have a shirt underneath with this triandaphylos color, rose color bibila. And then you have another bibila with metallic thread on the coat,
like a kaftan or
vest.
Yes.
Probably.
And also the edges were adorned with this lace. It's hard to distinguish between jewelries, and everything is jewelry there.
It's most probably a bridal shirt. also
Definitely,
because we see the
definitely.
color and yeah.
And here, because we don't go full circle without all the story, this is the bobbin lace that came. So we have the Greek lace that went from east to west, and now from west to east we have the bobbin lace, which also became popular in Greece. And they also found a way to use it on their festive shirts, like this one. They were quite popular, even in Crete or Cyprus, bobbin laces. This one, you could say it's a Romanian shirt. That's how familiar it looks. It's also a Greek men's shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the knotted lace.
And this solution is so much better than, because you might say, yeah, but you cannot, you don't need to do this complicated connection, because you can simply do running stitch on the back side and you can connect to parts. But I would say no, because this is the best way when
it's not only aesthetic, it's
also functional, because this is so much more resistant. All these ancient lace techniques are used to create a flexible network that will take over the shock, because if you are running or if you're moving or something bad happens, your shirt will not break. This tension is taken care of by this network, which is a little bit elastic.
Through the lace, yeah.
It's a little bit elastic and nothing will break. It will work as...
Stay together, yeah.
So this is one of the most important things to remember, that why lace appeared as a functional stitch in the first place. It was needed to protect the edges and
resistance.
Connect the edges in the most practical and pragmatic way to make them resistant as well. Great. I cannot wait to have video tutorials about how to do everything, because in this moment I have this feeling that I am so close to know, but yet there is something missing. And I hope we can organize, and please promise we are going to do video tutorials as soon as possible.
We will.
Thank you very much, Alina.
Thank you.
And let's talk soon.
We will.
Bam.